The celebration ended. The millionaire and the contract bride didn't leave somewhere quiet. The celebration ended days ago, but the cabin still smells like leftover pine and cold coffee. Rain hits the windows in hard, steady sheets, loud enough to erase the outside world. Ethan stands at the glass, watching water race itself downward like it is trying to leave faster than he can. Behind him, Clara sets a towel on the back of a chair without saying a word. No one reaches for a coat. No one checks the road. They do not leave somewhere quiet. The storm decides that for them. And the question becomes simple, immediate, and impossible to ignore. What happens when two people stay, not because they promised to, but because the day will not let them escape? The rain does not stop to negotiate. It begins before sunrise and keeps its pace, tapping the roof, pressing on the porch, blurring the line between the cabin and everything else. Ethan wakes to the sound and lies still for a moment, listening the way he has learned to listen lately. Not for comfort, for changes. He sits up. The room is dim, washed in gray light. Clara is already awake. She is not doing anything dramatic. She is simply there, moving through the cabin like someone who knows exactly how much space to take. She sets a second mug on the counter as if it belongs there, then steps back and waits for nothing. Ethan makes coffee. The smell fills the kitchen slowly, a familiar marker in a day that feels uncertain. He pours into both mugs without asking, then pauses when he realizes he did it automatically. He does not correct it. He carries them to the table anyway. They sit. Steam rises. Rain continues. No one mentions plans. After a few minutes, Clara stands and walks to the window. She drags her fingertip across the glass, clearing a thin strip just wide enough to see the yard. The view is washed out, colorless, almost flat. She reaches for a towel and begins wiping the window in slow, patient circles. Ethan watches for a moment, then stands and takes the second towel. He does not ask if she wants help. He simply starts on the other pane. 2 hands, 2 towels, the same motion. No conversation. The glass clears, then fogs again at the edges, as if the cabin is breathing against their work. Clara does not rush to win. She keeps wiping. Ethan keeps wiping too, matching her pace without trying. A gust of wind hits the side of the cabin, sharp enough to make the frame rattle. The lights flicker once. Clara pauses. Ethan stills, listening. The power cuts for a brief second, just long enough for the silence to reveal itself. Then it returns. The lamp glows again. The refrigerator hums resumes. The cabin pretends nothing happened. Neither of them does. Ethan takes his phone from his pocket, not to call anyone, not to check anything, only to set on the counter where it could be reached if needed. He turns on a flashlight once, tests the beam, then turns it off. Clara picks up the towel again. No sai, no implant, no panique. She wipes the last streak from the glass and folds the towel neatly, placing it back where she found it. Ethan copies the movement without thinking. The routine holds, even when the day tries to break it. Later, Clara starts dinner without asking what Ethan wants. It is simple, practical, something that does not require celebration. Ethan washes his hands and begins chopping vegetables, keeping his fingers steady, his movements precise. Rain drums harder against the roof. The cabin stays warm. The stove light flickers once and steadies. Clara stirs a pot, then steps aside so Ethan can reach the salt. Their shoulders do not touch, but they move like they have learned the shape of each other in tight spaces. Not intimacy, familiarity. Dinner is quiet, the kind of quiet that does not need defending. When they finish, neither stands right away. The rain continues. The windows fog again. The towels remain folded, waiting for the next small disruption. Ethan looks at the door once, then away. Clara follows his glance, then returns her eyes to the table. No one says they are staying. No one says they are leaving. And as the storm keeps them inside, one unanswered question settles into the cabin with them. If the world outside stays loud, how long can they keep this quiet from changing into something else? The rain eases sometime after noon, not stopping completely, only thinning out enough to change its sound. The roof no longer carries the full weight of it. Instead, there is a softer rhythm now, uneven like something deciding whether to stay. Ethan notices the change before he looks outside. He is standing at the counter, drying his hands on a towel that is already dry. He has been doing that more often, repeating motions longer than necessary. When he finishes, he folds the towel once, then unfolds it again, smoothing a corner that does not need smoothing. Clara is at the table with a notebook open in front of her. It is not new. He knows that. The cover is worn at the edges, the spine bent from being opened and closed too many times. What is different is where she places it. Not square with the table, slightly turned, as if it has been set down in a hurry, then forgotten. She is not writing. Her pen rests across the page, angled wrong, almost ready to roll. Ethan pours himself another cup of coffee, then stops halfway through and leaves the mug empty on the counter. He does not notice he has done this until later. For now, he simply walks past it, moving toward the window. Outside, the yard looks the same as it did in the morning. Wet ground, darkened wood, no clear sign that the storm is finished. He presses his palm lightly against the glass, then pulls it back, leaving a faint print that fogs over quickly. Behind him, Clara closes the notebook. The sound is small, but lands wrong. Ethan turns. She has already stood, the notebook tucked under her arm, the pen gone. He does not remember seeing her put it away. He watches her cross the room and place the notebook on the shelf near the door, not where it usually goes. She steps back, pauses, then adjusts it so the spine faces inward. The movement feels careful in a way that does not match the rest of the day. They do not talk about it. Clara moves into the kitchen and begins rinsing dishes that are already clean. The water runs longer than needed. Ethan sets the empty mug in the sink without explanation. It clinks softly against the porcelain, louder than expected. The power flickers again, just for a second. This time, neither of them reacts. The lights steady. The refrigerator hum resumes. The cabin keeps its shape. Ethan checks his phone, then sets it face down on the table. He does not pick it up again. He sits instead, elbows resting where the grain of the wood is worn smooth, tracing the line with one finger as if following a path. Clara dries her hands and sits across from him. There is space between them, measured, deliberate. Not distance, placement. She glances at the shelf by the door, then back to the table. Ethan follows her eyes and sees the notebook again, angled just slightly off. He considers standing to fix it. He does not. Something about leaving it wrong feels important. Outside, a car passes on the distant road. The sound is brief, almost imaginary. Clara looks up at the window instinctively, then stills when nothing follows. Ethan notices the moment she stops listening. It is subtle, easy to miss, but it stays with him longer than it should. Dinner is simpler than last night. Fewer steps, less heat. Ethan eats slower than usual. Clara finishes first and does not clear the plates right away. They sit in the quiet, letting the food settle, letting the day land where it wants. When Clara finally stands, she leaves her chair slightly out of place. Ethan does not fix it. Later, as the light fades, he reaches for the lamp by the couch and turns it on, then off again, testing the switch as if it might fail him. It does not. Still, he leaves the lamp on this time, brighter than necessary. Clara notices, but says nothing. They move through the evening without naming the shifts, without asking the questions that press gently at the edges of their routine. The cabin holds them, unchanged, even as small things begin to fall out of alignment. And as night settles in, one detail refuses to resolve itself. If nothing is wrong, why does everything feel slightly out of place? Morning arrives without announcement. No alarm. No clear edge between night and day. Just a gradual thinning of the dark that Ethan notices while staring at the ceiling. He stays there longer than necessary, counting nothing, waiting for a reason to move that does not come. When he finally sits up, the other side of the bed is already empty. The room looks unchanged, yet something is different. The window curtain is pulled back farther than usual. Light reaches the floor in a long, pale strip, stopping just short of his shoes. In the kitchen, Clara is already awake. She stands at the counter, slicing fruit with slow, even movements. Each piece is placed carefully on the cutting board, not touching the others. The radio is on, low enough to be mistaken for the sound of the house settling. Ethan pours water into the kettle and waits. He expects her to say something. She does not. They move around each other with practiced awareness. When he reaches for a cup, she steps aside before he asks. When she opens a drawer, he pauses without thinking. It almost feels coordinated again. Almost. At the table, Clara sets down 2 plates. The portions match. The placement does not. One plate sits closer to the edge than the other. Ethan notices and shifts his chair instead of the plate, adjusting himself to the imbalance. Clara watches the movement. Her eyes stay there a second longer than needed. "You did not sleep much," she says. It is the first sentence of the morning. Ethan nods once. "Neither did you." She looks down at her plate, then back up. "I slept." The correction is small, precise. Ethan lets it pass. After breakfast, Clara gathers the dishes and carries them to the sink. She leaves 1 fork behind. Ethan picks it up automatically, then stops. He sets it down again, exactly where it was. They step outside later, the air still damp from yesterday's rain. The path along the trees is soft underfoot. Their footsteps fall into a rhythm that feels familiar enough to be misleading. At one point, Ethan slows without realizing it. Clara continues for 2 steps, then turns back. "You okay?" she asks. The question lands heavier than it should. Ethan nods again, quicker this time. "Just thinking." She waits. He does not continue. They walk on. Farther down the path, Clara stops near a fallen branch. She bends to move it aside, then hesitates, leaving it where it is. Ethan watches, expecting her to change her mind. She does not. Instead, she steps around it and keeps going. The moment passes, but something about it stays with him. He tells himself it is nothing. A choice made without thought. The kind that does not matter. Back at the cabin, Clara disappears into the bedroom for longer than usual. When she returns, her jacket is on. Her bag rests by the door, open but untouched. Ethan notices the bag and assumes he understands. "You heading out?" he asks, keeping his voice even. Clara looks at him, surprised. "Not yet." The answer does not match the picture in his head. "Oh," he says. "I thought." She shakes her head gently. "No." She closes the bag and slides it under the bench, half hidden. The air shifts. Subtle. Unnamed. Ethan sits at the table and opens his laptop, more out of habit than need. The screen wakes, then fills with notifications he does not read. He closes it again. Clara stands by the window, watching the light move across the yard. "You do not have to stay inside today," she says. It sounds like permission, or release. Ethan considers it, then shakes his head. "I'm fine here." She nods, but something in her posture changes, as if she heard a different answer. The afternoon stretches. Quiet but not empty. Ethan catches himself thinking that this is the part where things settle back into place, where yesterday's misalignments correct themselves. The thought is comforting enough to believe, until Clara reaches for the notebook on the shelf. She takes it down, flips it open, then closes it without writing. She does not put it back. She leaves it on the table between them. And for the first time, Ethan is certain he understands what it means. He is wrong. As evening approaches, neither of them moves to clear the space. And the question that forms, unspoken, lingers longer than the light outside. If this is clarity, why does it feel like something is about to be missed? The rain returns before either of them notices the sky changing. It begins as a soft tapping against the window, light enough to be ignored. Ethan hears it only when Clara reaches out and closes the curtain halfway, narrowing the room without comment. He assumes the rest of the day will fold inward. He is wrong. Clara pulls on her coat. Not hurried, not hesitant, just deliberate. Ethan looks up from the table. "You going somewhere?" She nods. "Just outside." The answer feels incomplete, but he lets it stand. She opens the door, and the sound of rain fills the house for a brief second before the door closes again. The quiet that follows is thinner than before, stretched too tight. Ethan stays where he is. He tells himself this is part of the rhythm. People move. Room's empty. Nothing is required of him in this moment. Still, he watches the door longer than necessary. Minutes pass. The kettle cools untouched. The notebook remains open on the table, the page still blank. Ethan considers closing it, then leaves it as it is, as if the room itself might be keeping track. When Clara returns, her hair is damp, her coat darker at the shoulders. She does not take it off right away. She stands near the door, shaking the rain from her sleeves, then pauses. "You did not come," she says. It is not an accusation. Ethan blinks. "I thought you wanted to be alone." Clara turns slowly. "I did not say that." The space between what was said and what was assumed settles heavily. She hangs the coat on the back of a chair instead of its usual hook. It slides once, then stays crooked. Neither of them fixes it. Ethan stands. "I can still—" "No," she says too quickly. Then softer. "It is fine." The word lands wrong. They move into the kitchen without agreement. Ethan reaches for a towel to wipe the counter. Clara reaches for the same spot from the opposite side. Their hands almost touch. They both pull back. Ethan laughs once, short and out of place. "Saw the—" Clara nods, but she does not smile. She picks up a glass, rinses it, sets it upside down. Then she picks it up again and moves it to a different spot. The second placement looks less intentional than the first. "You do not have to rearrange things," Ethan says, immediately wishing he had not. Clara looks at him. Really looks this time. "I am not," she replies. "I am deciding what stays." The sentence shifts the room. Ethan opens his mouth, then closes it. He thinks he understands what she means. He thinks this is about objects, about space, about keeping order. It comforts him to believe that. The power flickers without warning. The lights dim, return, then fade again. The radio cuts out mid-sentence. The house settles into a deeper quiet, interrupted only by rain and the distant sound of the wind. Clara does not react. Ethan waits for her to say something. She does not. Instead, she walks to the window and presses her palm lightly against the glass, feeling the cold through it. "I forgot how. Loud storms are here," she says. Ethan nods. "You get used to it." She turns. "That is what worries me." The words sit between them, unanswered. Later, they eat dinner by candlelight. The food is simple. The silence is not. At one point, Ethan reaches for his phone. He stops before touching it and leaves it where it is. Clara notices. She notices everything tonight. "You can check it," she says. Ethan shakes his head. "It can wait." She studies him, as if weighing the truth of that statement, then looks away. When the dishes are done, Clara does something unexpected. She moves the chair by the table. Just a few inches. Enough to change the angle of the room. Ethan watches the shift and feels something unravel quietly inside him. This is not a return to routine. This is a revision. As night settles in, the house holds them in a new arrangement, one neither of them has agreed to, but both are participating in. And somewhere between the rain and the dark, a different question takes shape. If this is still staying, why does it feel like something else has already left? And if this moment feels familiar, stay with it. Some routines only reveal their meaning after they change. Morning comes without ceremony. The rain has moved on sometime before dawn, leaving the house quieter than it has been in days. The air smells clean, almost sharp. Ethan wakes before the light fully settles, the way he has been waking lately, not from urgency, but from the absence of it. Clara is already up. He knows this not because he hears her, but because the room feels altered. The chair by the table is back in its original place. The curtain is open wider than he left it. The notebook on the table is closed now, his pen resting neatly on top. She has decided something. Ethan pours coffee. 2 cups. He stops, considers, then pours only one. He tells himself it is practical. He does not move the second mug back into the cabinet. He leaves it by the sink, clean and used. Clara enters the room quietly, carrying a folded piece of paper. "Did you sleep?" he asks. She nods. "Enough." She sets the paper down between them. It is not folded carefully. It has been opened and closed more than once. Ethan does not touch it. "What is that?" he asks. "Something that arrived yesterday," she says, "after you went outside." The answer lands heavier than expected. "I did not see anything," he says. "I know." She does not push it toward him. She does not explain. She simply leaves it there, as if the table itself will decide when it should be opened. They sit across from each other. The quiet is familiar now, but it no longer feels shared in the same way. Ethan reaches for the paper at the same time Clara reaches for her coffee. Their timing is off by half a second. He pauses. She notices. "You can read it," she says. He slides the paper closer, opens it once, then again more slowly. It is brief, formal, written in a tone he recognizes immediately. A confirmation, a timeline, a reminder of obligations that exist whether or not he acknowledges them. Ethan exhales through his nose and folds the paper back the way it was. He does not look up right away. So he says, "They did not forget." Clara watches him carefully. No, the answer to one question settles quietly into place. This is not an interruption. It is a continuation. Ethan leans back in his chair. He feels steadier than he expected. The absence of surprise almost comforts him. "That explains a few things," he says. "Like what?" "Why it feels harder to stay." Clara does not respond immediately. She looks at the window instead, at the light touching the edge of the trees. "I thought staying was the plan," she says. "It was," Ethan replies. "It still is." She turns back to him. "Plans change." "Not always." "That is not true," she says gently. "They just change without asking." The logic is simple. Too simple. Ethan realizes something then, something that answers part of what has been forming between them. He stayed here, believing time would soften the edges of what he avoided. It has not. It has clarified them. Later that morning, Ethan steps outside alone. The ground is damp, the air cold enough to wake him fully. He walks the edge of the property, not far, just enough to feel the distance between the house and everything else. When he returns, Clara is packing. Not quickly, not secretly, just methodically. He watches from the doorway. "You are leaving?" he asks. "I am making room," she says. "For what?" She looks up at him. "For whatever comes next." The answer unsettles him more than a goodbye would have. They stand there, facing a truth neither of them can undo. Staying here did not protect them from consequence. It only delayed the shape it would take. Ethan realizes then that the question is no longer whether he can hold onto this quiet. It is whether holding onto it costs more than letting it go. And that question does not belong to him alone. If this moment feels heavier than the last, stay with it. Some clarity arrives gently. Some arrives like this. The first real consequence arrives quietly. Not with a call. Not with raised voices. Not even with urgency. It arrives in the form of absence. Ethan notices it when he reaches for something that is no longer there. Not an object. A pattern. The house has shifted again overnight. Clara is still there, but the spaces between her movements have changed. She no longer adjusts her pace to his. She no longer waits for the room to settle before acting inside it. In the morning, she packs one bag and leaves it by the door. Not hidden, not announced, just present. Ethan watches from the kitchen as she moves through the house, checking nothing twice. She folds clothes with care, but without hesitation. When she closes the zipper, the sound is final enough that it echoes longer than it should. "You do not have to do that today," he says. Clara looks at him, then at the bag. "I know." The statement does not reassure him. He pours coffee and realizes halfway through that he has already poured too much. He sets the mug down and does not drink it. The routine that once steadied him now feels like a performance he no longer understands. Later, the message arrives. Not a call, a notification. Short, precise, unavoidable. A reminder that decisions made weeks ago are now active. A confirmation that what he delayed has not paused. A notice that something is already moving without him. Ethan reads it once. Then again. He does not show Clara. Not because he is hiding it. Because showing it would change the room, and the room already feels fragile. He steps outside instead. The wind has picked up again. The ground is firm under his boots. He walks farther. This time, past the familiar boundary, past where he usually turns back. The coastline opens in front of him, wide and indifferent. For the first time since arriving, Ethan understands something he did not expect. Staying did not protect him from consequence. It simply postponed the moment of impact. When he returns, Clara is in the living room, sorting through papers laid out on the table. They are not scattered. They are organized into small stacks, each one deliberate. You are preparing, he says. Yes. For leaving. For knowing, she replies. The difference matters more than he wants it to. Ethan steps closer. You do not have to decide anything yet. Clara looks up. I'm not deciding. I am responding. The word lands with weight. He realizes, then, that something has cracked between them, something that cannot be repaired by quiet or routine alone. It is not anger. It is misalignment. They sit down across from each other. The table feels wider than before. You said staying had a cost, Ethan says. Yes. And leaving does too. Yes. He waits for her to say more. She does not. That is the consequence he feels most sharply. Not what she says, what she no longer feels. The day stretches. The house holds them separately now. Each room a small boundary, neither crosses without reason. In the afternoon, Ethan opens his laptop. He stares at the screen for a long time. The familiar sense of control does not return. He types 3 words, deletes them, types again, stops. The decisions he made days ago, the ones that allowed everything to move smoothly, have reached beyond this house now. They have found him where routine cannot buffer them. This is not something money can pause. He prepares food out of habit, then realizes he is not hungry. The plate sits untouched longer than usual. When he does eat, he stops halfway through and leaves the rest without noticing. Clara watches from the doorway. You do not finish things lately, she says. Ethan looks up. I will later. She nods. That is what worries me. The statement hangs without explanation. That evening, the power flickers again. This time, it does not come back immediately. The house settles into shadow. They light candles without speaking. Their movements no longer mirror each other. One flame flares higher. One burns low. Ethan reaches for his phone, then stops. He places it face down on the table, as if distance can be measured in inches. They froze the account, he says suddenly. Temporarily. Clara does not react. And the board? She asks. They will not wait. They had already been preparing for this. After that sentence, the room changes in ways neither of them names. Ethan moves more quietly now, like someone learning the limits of space that no longer belongs to him. Clara notices the small shifts first. The way he does not check the weather. The way he does not set reminders. The way he pauses before actions that used to be automatic. She adjusts without announcing it, sliding tasks into the empty spaces, carrying weight without claiming it. Dinner is late. Not forgotten, just delayed. The soup cools before either of them sits. When they finally do, they eat without matching pace. One finishes first. One keeps going. The candle burns lower than usual, wax spilling onto the table in a thin line that no one wipes away. Later, Ethan opens his laptop again. The screen lights the room briefly, then goes dark. He closes it without typing a single word. He rubs his hands together once, then rests them flat on the table, palms down. Clara stands by the sink, drying a plate that is already dry. She sets it back in the cabinet, then realizes it does not belong there. She moves it again, then stops, leaving it slightly out of place. Neither comments. The night stretches longer than before. Sleep comes in pieces, broken and uneven. By morning, the routine no longer fits cleanly. Coffee spills where it never has. A chair scrapes too loudly. The quiet holds, but it strains. Something has shifted from choice to consequence. And both of them can feel it, even without words. Silence stretches again, but it no longer holds them the same way. Staying has a cost, Clara says quietly. So does leaving, Ethan replies. They stand there, the space between them wider now, harder to cross. Nothing can return to what it was. And for the first time, neither of them believes it should. If this moment feels irreversible, stay with it. Some consequences do not end stories. They change their direction. The choice does not arrive all at once. It forms slowly, in fragments, in moments that do not announce themselves. As important until they are already past. Ethan realizes this when Clara moves the bag from the door. Not away, not closer, just to the side. The gesture is small enough to ignore, but deliberate enough not to be accidental. It tells him something without saying it. Nothing is final yet. That knowledge does not comfort him. They move through the morning without coordination. Ethan wakes first, then lies still, listening to the house settle. When he finally gets up, Clara is already dressed, sitting at the table with a cup of tea untouched in front of her. "You are up early," he says. She nods. "I did not want to rush." The sentence sounds like a courtesy. It feels like a boundary. Ethan pours coffee, then hesitates. He leaves the kettle on longer than necessary, as if time itself might thicken if he gives it enough heat. "Are you going back?" he asks, carefully. Clara does not answer right away. "I have to," she says finally. "At some point." He waits. "To what?" he asks. She looks at him then, steady. "To myself." The answer leaves no opening. Ethan sits down across from her. The table has become familiar territory for difficult truths. "If you go," he says, "this stays unresolved." Clara nods. "If I stay, it stays unresolved too." The balance is clear. There is no version of this where nothing is lost. Outside, the wind has eased. The sky is pale, undecided. It feels like a day that could become anything or nothing at all. Ethan stands and walks to the window. He rests his hand on the frame, feeling the cool wood beneath his palm. "I can leave," he says. Clara turns. "You should not say that unless you mean it." "I do mean it." She studies him. "For how long?" The question exposes the fault line beneath his certainty. He does not answer, because he does not know. Leaving would cost him more than distance. Staying would cost him clarity. Neither option offers relief. "I built my life on control," Ethan says quietly. Walking away from it is not simple. Clara's voice is calm. Neither is staying inside it. They sit with that. Minutes pass. No one interrupts. This is not a standoff. It is an accounting. Ethan looks at the bag again. He sees now that it is not packed for departure alone. It is packed for transition. Things chosen carefully. Things left behind intentionally. "You planned this," he says. "I prepared for it," she replies. "Those are not the same." He nods, accepting the distinction. "I did not prepare," he admits. Clara's expression softens, but she does not step closer. That is why this is not a rescue. The word lands cleanly. Ethan exhales. "Then what is it?" "It is a decision," she says. "One you cannot outsource." They stand at opposite ends of the room, the space between them no longer empty, but full of what has not been said. If he asks her to stay, he risks trapping her inside something unfinished. If he lets her go, he risks losing the one place where he has not been performing. There is no version of this where he wins. There's only a version where he chooses honestly. Ethan reaches into his pocket and takes out his phone. He turns it off. Not silent. Off. He sets it on the table, screen dark. Clara watches. "I am not choosing yet," he says. "But I am removing excuses." She nods slowly. That is a start. The choice still waits. But for the first time, it feels like it belongs to him. If you have ever stood between two imperfect paths, stay with this moment. You are not alone. The action happens before either of them names it as such. Ethan reaches for the bag. Not to move it, to open it. Clara does not stop him. The zipper slides smoothly, the sound cutting through the room with a precision that feels final. Inside, everything is arranged with care. Clothes folded once, not twice. Essentials only. No excess. No sentimentality. And beneath it all, an envelope. Thicker than the others. Ethan lifts it out slowly. The papers inside feel heavier than they look, thick with signatures and dates that do not belong to this moment. Clara speaks before he asks. "You are not meant to see it like that." "But I am seeing it," he replies. He opens the envelope. The documents are clear. Names. Dates. A signature he recognizes. His. Not recent. Older than this house. Older than the quiet they built together. His hand stills. "This was already decided," he says. "Yes. Before I came here." The truth does not explode. It settles. This was never about whether she would leave. It was about when. Ethan looks up. "You planned an exit before there was something to exit from." Clara does not flinch. "I planned safety." The word changes everything. He reads the page again. He sees it now. The clause he skimmed months ago. The protection he agreed to without thinking it would apply to this. He closes the envelope. "So even if I chose you," he says, "this would still exist." Yes. The room holds its breath. That is the truth that cannot be undone. This was never a waiting game. It was a timed one. Ethan moves away from the table. He walks once around the room, then stops near the window. Outside, the light is fading. The day has chosen its direction without them. I thought staying here meant opting out, he says. Clara watches him carefully. It meant opting in, just not on your terms. He turns back to her. You let me believe there was still time. I'll let you believe what you needed to make a real choice. The words are steady, not cruel, not soft, honest. Ethan nods slowly. The action comes next. He takes his phone from the table and turns it back on. Clara stiffens slightly. You said I know what I said. The screen lights up. Notifications flood in. Messages stack. Calls missed. Consequences waiting. He scrolls once. Then he opens a new message. He types deliberately. No shortcuts. No edits. When he finishes, he does not reread it. He sends it. The sound is quiet. Almost insignificant. But the action cannot be recalled. Clara looks at him. Who was that? My attorney, he replies. And the board. Her breath catches just once. What did you tell them? That I am not complying. The room tilts. That will cost you, she says. I know. More than money. I know. He sets the phone down. Screen up this time. There is no hiding it now. This does not erase what is in that envelope, Clara says. No, Ethan agrees. But it changes what it means. He steps closer. Not to touch her. Just enough to close the distance he created earlier. For the first time, he continues, the loss is mine to choose. Clara studies his face. She sees the strain there, the resolve beneath it. You understand this does not fix us, she says. Yes. And it does not guarantee anything. Yes. She waits. Ethan meets her gaze. But it makes staying real. The silence that follows is not fragile. It is dense. Clara reaches for the envelope and places it back into the bag. She closes the zipper herself this time. This still stands, she says. I know. She lifts the bag and sets it back by the door. Not closer. Not farther. Where it belongs now. The truth is fully in the room. The action is complete. There's no path back to how things were. Only forward into something neither of them controls alone. And for the first time, that uncertainty does not feel like avoidance. It feels like consequence chosen. If this moment feels like a line crossed, stay with it. Some truths do not end stories. They begin the part that cannot be rehearsed. The morning arrives without ceremony. No dramatic light. No revelation in the sky. Just a slow return of order. Ethan wakes before Clara, not because he cannot sleep, but because the house has shifted into a quieter rhythm. One that does not ask him to anticipate or react, only to notice. He steps into the kitchen and begins the routine again. Coffee, water, heat. This time, he finishes the motion. He pours 2 cups. When Clara enters the room, she pauses at the doorway, as if measuring something invisible. The bag is still by the door. The envelope still inside it. Nothing has changed in position, but the air is different. You are up early, she says. So are you, he replies. They sit at the table without negotiation. The chair remains where it was moved days ago. Neither of them adjusts it. They drink in silence. Not the silence that waits for something to be fixed. The silence that accepts what already is. Ethan opens his phone again. There are messages waiting. Consequences continuing to unfold. He reads none of them. He turns the screen down and sets it aside. I will leave later today, Clara says. Ethan nods. I know. If she stayed longer, it would become a different kind of promise. She watches him closely. And you? I will stay, he answers. Then, after a moment for now, the honesty of it settles gently. No promises. No claims. Just clarity. They move through the house together. Not as before, but not apart either. Clara folds the blanket on the couch once and leaves it there. Ethan opens the window slightly, letting cold air in. The house breathes. Outside, the wind has calmed. The ocean is steady again. Not smooth, not rough, simply present. Clara lifts the bag. Ethan does not stop her. He walks her to the door. They stand there, close enough to feel each other's warmth, far enough to remain separate. This does not end here, Ethan says. Clara nods. No, but it does not continue like before. No, she agrees. That is the order now. She opens the door. Cold air rushes in briefly, then fades as she steps outside. Ethan watches her walk down the path until she disappears beyond the trees. He does not follow. He does not retreat. He closes the door and rests his hand against it for a moment longer than necessary. Then he turns back into the house. The routine resumes, but altered. The second cup remains on the table, untouched. Ethan cleans the kitchen slowly. He finishes what he starts. He does not rush. He does not wait. Later, he opens a notebook again. This time he writes. Not plans, not strategies. Observations. The light on the floor. The sound of the wind. The way the house feels when it holds only one person. He stops when the page is full. Outside, the day moves forward. Ethan steps onto the porch and looks out toward the water. The horizon is clear enough to see where one thing ends and another begins. He understands something now that he did not before. Healing was never about staying or leaving. It was about choosing without pretending there was no cost. Inside the house, everything remains as it is. The bag is gone. The envelope is gone. But the space they occupied is still visible. And that is enough. Ethan breathes in the cold air once more, then turns back inside. The door closes behind him, not as an ending, as a beginning that does not need to announce itself. If you stayed until now, you understand this was never about a perfect ending. It was about finding a way to stand inside what is real. If this story resonated with you, stay with us. There are more moments like this ahead.